Hey, it's Freiburger, and I'm about to show you a sample episode of a show that we do on MotorTrendOnDemand.com that's called Roadkill Extra. It shows up every single weekday. It's got stuff like outtakes from shows, behind-the-scenes stuff, tech tips, you name it. You can see them all with a free trial at MotorTrendOnDemand.com.
Okay guys, here's something you really need to know before you tackle a paint and body project. I mean, a lot of guys dream about doing it, but there's one mistake that guys make all the time. They underestimate the amount of work that's required to get the job done. And you know what? It even happens to the best of us, because I literally thought we were going to be spraying top coat on this car right now. But look at it. It's not even done with the bodywork. It still has holes. So I kind of feel, well, if I wasn't a really self-confident guy, I would actually feel like a little bit of a failure right now. But the progress is going so well that I'm actually pretty pleased with it. I've got most of the dents ironed out. I've got a lot of the primer blocked out where I did the first block sanding. And what that does is it uses the material thickness of the primer to fill minor imperfections. But sometimes when you're sanding, you'll find spots like right here where you cut through, and I can feel that's a tiny little bump. So that's going to need to be tapped down a little bit, and then some more primer applied, and then that'll be perfect. But for the most part, the door is perfect. But right here, this is where I was in for a surprise, because when I kicked the windshield out, I knew there was a big hole right here, right at the top of the A-pillar, and a lot of guys would make fun of that. That was welded shut. It's got some glass reinforced filler on it right now. But then I found holes in here. I found a great big rectangular hole at the bottom of the A-pillar. I still have a hole right here. You can see I can poke something right through here. I've got holes in here. This is where a factory seam goes. I've got to finish melting all of this lead out of here and then refill all that. Maybe with lead, but probably using a glass reinforced filler, which is basically Bondo or body filler with a fiberglass reinforcement. So I have that. But then I had another dilemma that kind of stalled me. I wouldn't say it quite stymied me, but it did slow me down, because I have to figure out where I'm going to stop the paint job, especially here in the engine bay. I know I'm not repainting the entire engine bay. Maybe one day when we get the engine out of the car for some reason, we'll do the entire engine bay. But the natural cut line was right along this flange right here on the cowl, all the way across to the other side. The hood hinges need to be painted, and then this inner flange of the front fenders where they bolt onto the fender apron. So I had all that area, and then kind of rotating around here to the front grille support and some of that structure, basically the upper parts of the engine compartment. I needed to address that somehow, but if you look at it, it's got scaly surface rust all over the place, and I didn't want to have to strip this to bare metal. There's really no good way to do that except by blasting. So I discovered the most effective way to handle it was wire brush to knock off any loose scale, and I did that really thoroughly from all kinds of different angles. Now hold on a second. I used a rust treatment. You might have seen this product in a previous update. So I didn't apply this by spray. I dabbed it on there, and you can see I didn't take all the paint off, but anywhere where the paint was thin or loose, the wire brush kind of whisked it off, and the remaining rust was pretty much removed, but a lot of it was treated and turned to black iron phosphate, which you can paint over. So that's the way I'm going to do it. Wire brush real thoroughly, treat it. Now I've got a good surface, and then I'm going to hit that with primer and paint it. So a little setback, and that's a lot of work. As a matter of fact, I'm not even 100% done figuring it out, because right here on this radiator support, I'm kind of thinking that needs to be a continuation. But look at the scale in here. And there's no way to effectively strip this to bare metal at this point. This whole engine bay would have to be completely cleared and then sandblasted to bare metal. But I think I can use the technique I used on the fender flanges on the radiator support, which means taking the radiator out, and you know, one thing leads to another, so there's a little snowball. But I haven't shown you the worst of it yet, but I will. And that's over on the other side of the car. This is the biggest repair left on the car. And right here in this roof rail or gutter, there was a considerable amount of rust. You can see this is completely blown out. And what I did is I had to cut it back, right back to good metal, and treat the remaining rust in there. And actually there's holes all the way through the gutter in a lot of areas. Now, I could actually just hammer down these jagged edges and then come back and trowel some reinforced fiberglass Bondo, but it's just not the right way to do it. It's going to take some weld repair. It's going to take quite a bit of work to get this mint and really nice. And the irony is, the factory just fills this whole thing about halfway to the top of the rail with seam sealer. I'm probably going to fill it just like the factory did when I'm all done with the metal repair, but I'm not using an acrylic seam sealer like they originally used. I'm probably going to use a panel bond adhesive. So there's that left to do. But overall, I think once I get this area addressed and get those areas in the engine compartment that I showed you earlier where I've got that really deep surface rust, once those areas are done, it's pretty much going to fall together from there. I mean, really, I think I can just knock this out in no time flat once I get that done. But then again, I might just be underestimating the amount of work involved. So you might find out on an upcoming episode of Roadkill Extra.
If you need more Roadkill Extra, go sign up right now.